The new Sony G-Master 70-200 f2.8 version 2 is here, and it costs a whopping $2,800. Now, it's lighter and there's a lot new going on with it, but the question still remains, is this G-Master lens worth the G-Master price tag? What is up, people? Dunna here. We're at Goldstream Provincial Park, and I've got the 70-200 G-Master version 2, so we can go out and do some practical tests, and I can show you what this thing is capable of, build quality, the buttons and features that it has, my experience shooting with it, and give you my recommendation whether I think it's worth it or not. First things first, let's head out for a hike so I can show you the videos and photos that this lens produces, and you can see for yourself what kind of quality it has. The following video is shot entirely on the Sony G-Master 70-200 f2.8 version 2, except for one single shot. Leave a comment below and let me know if you can guess which shot it is. Real quick, I want to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Musicbed. Musicbed is a music licensing platform that focuses on quality artists and amazing sounding music. For me and my videos, this is really what makes them stand out. Real music from real artists that you would actually listen to, not canned stock music. They've got over 1,000 authentic and relevant artists that range over any style that you might need. Some of my favorites recently include award-winning songwriter Josh Sahunta for his groovy pop vibes, or Cold Brew if I'm looking for some lo-fi hip-hop beats. And finding great music couldn't be any easier because they've built the website with the filmmaker in mind. They've got incredible search functionality, and they've got playlists from the Musicbed team themselves as well as other industry-leading filmmakers. And if you're still having trouble finding what you're looking for, they will literally do a complimentary song search for you to help you find that perfect song for your video. So check out the link down in the description for more info, and make sure to use the code Dunna to get a free month when you purchase an annual subscription. Huge thanks to Musicbed for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to that 70-200. As it turns out, filming yourself on a 70-200 is a little bit difficult when you have to be so far from the lens at all times, but it was still fun, so I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. As you might expect of any G-Master lens, it's basically got all the new bells and whistles. First off, it's weather sealed in a whole bunch of places, so you should be able to go out and shoot in some pretty harsh conditions if you need to. They've also added an aperture or iris ring onto this lens, which is something that we're seeing them add onto a lot of the newer Sony lenses. And there's also an iris lock switch, so you can lock it into the A mode, which allows the camera body to control the aperture, or you can lock it into where the lens actually controls the aperture. This doesn't actually lock you from changing the aperture aperture at all. It just locks it in one of those two modes. And on top of that, you can also declick the aperture so that you've got smoother movements for exposure changes, really great for video shooters. This lens also has optical steady shot stabilization and 3 different modes that you can switch between. The first mode is just a general stabilization. The second one is designed specifically for panning movements. And the third one is designed specifically for, quote,
dynamic unpredictable motion.
I pretty much left it on number 1 most of the time, and that seemed to do pretty good for me. We've also got a focus limiter toggle switch, so you can change it from full range to only things that are more than 3 meters away, so that your focusing doesn't get confused with things in your foreground. The next switch is a full-time DMF switch, which allows you to make manual focus adjustments even after obtaining autofocus. Personally, I turn this off most of the time because I find it too easy to accidentally bump my focus and ruin it, but it can definitely be handy in certain situations. And the last toggle switch that we've got is the classic autofocus manual focus toggle, and then we've got 3 buttons up closer to the front of the lens that you can customize in your camera body. Aside from just buttons and dials, we've also got a new lens hood design. It's got kind of a rubbery material on the end and this feltish type thing on the inside to cut down the reflections. There's a release button so you can take it off and click it into place. And on the top, we've got this little trap door, and you can open that up to give yourself access to any filters on the inside, something like a circular polarizer that you might have to adjust. Both the focus and zoom rings have a nice rubbery material on them that makes them easy to grab onto and adjust. And while I did like how easy it is to zoom, I could have used a little bit more resistance on the focus ring. Part of the issue here is that I found it really easy to accidentally bump and lose the focus that I had. The other part of it is that it's got a relatively short focus throw, so if you're trying to make minute adjustments, it would be nice to have a little bit more resistance so that it's just a little bit easier. From what I could tell, the focusing is linear though, which is really nice. On the flip side of that, I really loved how easy it was to adjust the zoom, and it's all internal zooming, so you don't have to worry about the barrel extending. It does also come with a tripod mount foot to get better balance when you're using a tripod, and it's got an interesting design. You can loosen it and spin it around if you want to do some vertical shooting, and there are dots on the lens itself to line up. I do wish that there was some kind of tactile feedback in there so that you would know that you're on the exact right spot. But the other cool thing about this is that you can actually take off the foot without having to take off the whole ring. You just loosen this piece, and then there's a button in there and it slides right out. So now I've got the lens without the foot on it and it doesn't take up any extra space, but I didn't have to try and slide off that whole loop like you do on some other lenses. And then when you're ready to put it back on, you just slide it on, it clicks in, and you tighten it up. The only other thing that I would have liked is if the tripod foot itself was Arca-Swiss compatible, instead of having to put an extra plate on the bottom of it. But that's not a huge deal. The 70-200 feels great to use. It's got that sturdy G-Master build that we would expect, but they managed to make it quite a bit lighter than I thought it would be. They managed to get this model down to 1,045 grams, whereas the previous model was 1,480 grams. So you've got a pretty significant reduction in weight there. It's also got a great balance to it. Not too much of the weight is out at the front of the lens, so it doesn't feel like it's pulling downwards or forwards on you. So overall, it feels really nice to use, and there's less hesitation to toss it in the backpack. And part of this is because of what's going on inside the lens with those new XD linear motors that Sony's been putting in a lot of their new lenses. Every lens so far that I've used with the XD linear focus motors in them, I've been blown away with, not only because they can make them smaller and lighter, but also because of that autofocus performance. I use this lens primarily on my Sony Alpha 1, and it almost never missed unless I screwed up something with the settings. In photo mode, it was super snappy and accurate, and in video mode, it was nice and smooth. I did actually have to turn down the speed a little bit when I was shooting videos and trying to do intentional autofocus pulls, and there were 1 or 2 times where it slightly overshot and had to pull back on the focus when I just kind of let it choose what it should be focusing on. But to be honest, I don't think I've ever had a lens that didn't do that a little bit, and this one was very minimal. And I really put that autofocus to the test by shooting some flying birds. They're moving really quickly, and the autofocus seemed to have no problem problem with it whatsoever, almost all keepers. With this lens on the Sony Alpha 1, you actually get the true 30 frames per second shooting, which you don't get with third-party alternatives. And that's actually not the only advantage that you get by choosing newer Sony glass to go with the newer Sony bodies. One of the other things that you can do with this lens is use the Sony 2x teleconverter, essentially turning it into a 140 to 400 f5.6 lens for an extra $550 US. Unfortunately, I didn't get to test this out personally because I couldn't get my hands on the teleconverter right away, but it seems to perform well based on other people's tests, and that would be an awesome way to not have to choose whether I'm going to take my 70 to 200 or my 100 to 400. I could just have that teleconverter in the bag and have both. Another advantage to going with a Sony lens like this is that on the newer cameras like the a7 IV, you can use lens breathing compensation. I didn't have a huge problem with focus breathing on this lens, but you can totally eliminate it with that function. And while we're talking about it, this is me personally pleading to the Sony rulers that we need to get that function added into some of the other newer Sony bodies like the A1, the a7S III, and the FX3. We just need that firmware update. And as an Alpha 1 shooter, it really sucks to have the flagship camera but not have all the features. Okay, anyway, it's light, it's fancy, it's the belle of the ball at the 70 to 200 party, but the question is, how was it to shoot with and how were the images? Well, you already saw some of the videos and photos for yourself, so you can make up your own mind, but for me, I thought it was a fantastic experience and the quality was great. As far as the wow factor, I was definitely feeling it with this lens. Like I said, I mostly shot on the Alpha 1 and it had no problem giving me beautiful sharpness throughout the whole frame and rendering super clean images even on that high megapixel sensor. The bokeh is super smooth and pleasant, so you could definitely use this to get some of those more compressed portrait shots if you wanted. The colors and contrast were really pleasing to my eye, and I didn't run into any significant problems with chromatic aberrations or flaring. The close focus distance was pretty decent. I noticed that it was a little bit better at the 70mm end compared to the 200mm end, but as impressed as I might be by this lens, it's still $2,800, which is a tough call to make for a lot of people. So who is this lens for? I truly think this is the best lens in this focal range for Sony E-mount, and by a decent margin in both image quality and usability. But if you're not making decent money with photography or videography, it might not make sense with the other options out there. For example, Sony has the f470 to 200 that's a little bit smaller and cheaper, and Tamron has the 70 to 180 f2.8 that doesn't have any of the bells and whistles, but performs pretty well and most people are happy with it. But if you are shooting professionally and you can justify the price tag, I think the experience with this lens will be better than any of the other competitors, as well as the image quality that you're gonna get out of it. At least that's been my experience. Personally, I'm still weighing my options before I run out and grab one right away, but if you are gonna go get it, I highly recommend looking at the 2x teleconverter as well. That could save you having to buy a completely separate lens for sports and wildlife. Just a thought. But as always, I wanna hear from you. What do you think of the new 70 to 200 G Master version 2? Leave a comment down below, and on your way down there, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.